Welcome back to the third episode of Across the Wave, where we highlight all the Delbarton sports news that you missed in the past week, as well as talk about some pro sports news and college. I'm Lorenzo Scola, joined by Ryan Dooley, and we have a great slate to talk about for you today. All right, we're going to start with football. So the football team fell to St. Peter's 42-7 in their homecoming match on Saturday, for the lone touchdown going to Grant Van Rappenhoort on a great catch and a long touchdown. Both teams were locked at 0 at the end of the first half, and the Delbarton defense looked very strong until a pick six occurred with about 3 minutes left in the second quarter on a miscommunication between quarterback Gavin Gallardi and receiver Van Rappenhoort. That's when St. Peter started to pick things up. And although Delbarton started things very strong, there were just too many mistakes in the end and St. Peter's ran away with it. Additionally, Delbarton suffered many injuries. Jack Castellano and Xavier Rodriguez, two key ones at the receiver position, both with shoulder injuries, and both I saw in a slate today. Going forward, this offense is going to need to rely on sophomore receiver Grant Van Rappenhoort in the backfield of Austin Kelly, Kobe Irby Mason, and Matthew Teferi.
Yeah, and definitely not the best showing for the Green Wave. However, there were definitely some bright spots that came out of this. We saw Kobe Irby Mason run for 144 on 22 attempts. He's really emerged as a great back for this Green Wave offense. As well, you mentioned him, Austin Kiley had 47 yards on 5 carries. And that trio of running backs in Kobe Irby Mason, Austin Kiley, and Matthew Teferi has really stood out and really been a bright spot for this Delbarton offense. You know, there are multiple plays where they're able to mix up formations with the two backs in the backfield and really just keep the defense on their toes. And they also allowed for a long rush from Kobe Irby Mason in this game. Moving forward, they just need to start using that run offense and capitalize off it by connecting with the passing game too. On the other side, St. Peter's prep Tyler Bell had an amazing game, throwing for 2 touchdowns and 156 yards on 6 for 10 completions. And Hunter Watson brought in both those touchdowns for the Marauders. Now, the defense for Delbarton was super strong coming out of the gate. However, it felt like they were always on the field. The offense struggled to put together long drives, and that really has a toll on the defense and just makes it hard for them to get stops.
Yeah, definitely. And now let's talk about the upcoming slate for the Green Wave football team. They have another big home game and a key away game. On the 27th, this Saturday, they will face their rival, Seton Hall Prep. That's going to be a stacked matchup. Seton Hall Prep is 1-2, coming off a 38-14 loss to DePaul. And I even heard in the lunchroom, Coach Bowers talking to Kobe, telling him that to be ready for this week's matchup. So I think we're going to see a lot of him this week. But that's going to be a great game. It's always an amazing game between those two teams. Then on the 4th, they play Pope John, who lost to Bergen over the weekend 35-0. And then on the 18th, they played the big Bergen Catholic, the #1 team in NJ, the 14th team in the nation. They're 4-0 with a red hot start, beating 2 out-of-state teams, one from Florida, the other from Illinois. Great teams. And they're playing Don Bosco this weekend. That's going to be a very exciting 1v2 matchup. Those two teams look stacked this season.
The soccer team continues their red-hot start and has improved to 7-0 with 3 wins in the past week. First, they beat Sparta 5-0 with 2 goals from freshman Cortland Martin and 1 goal from Henry Farrell, Peter Wynn, and Gabe Rotolo. They then beat Montclair Kimberly Academy 1-0 with another goal from Cortland Martin. And then recently on Tuesday, they defeated Mount Olive 3-1 thanks to 2 goals from Liam Murphy. And however, freshman Cortland Martin has really stood out in this stretch from Delbarton. He leads the team in goals with 6 so far and just has a very impressive start to the season thus far. He's followed by Dylan Mazzarella, who currently has 3 goals.
Yeah, and let's just talk about that upcoming slate. What a great game against Mount Olive. Liam Murphy with those 2 key goals. One on an amazing pass by freshman Matthew Brusco, seen here. And then the schedule, it starts turning up. The Delbarton Invitational will start on the 28th. First, they play St. Augustine, who's 6-0 and ranked number 7 in the state. They are amazing this season. They're coming off a 3-0 win versus Heinlein. That game's always a great one between two stacked teams. Then they play Chaminade on the 28th, who's 5-1, and their only loss coming to St. Benedict's, they lost to 6-0. They play St. Augustine Saturday as well here at Delbarton. So yeah, the soccer team getting off to a great start, but the big question always comes down to, do they have what it takes to beat the number 1 team in the nation, St. Benedict's, who looks amazing once again this season?
And absolutely. I mean, St. Benedict's has been a soccer powerhouse for years, and there's going to be some great tests for the soccer team coming up. The Delbarton Invitational is always a lot of fun and always tests this team greatly. You know, they have the big matchup against St. Augustine on Friday, which will be live streamed on the Green Wave Sports Network, which is going to be a big test. And then just going on, they need to keep picking up wins, keep rolling with this momentum. That's going to be big.
Definitely going to be an exciting one. Make sure to tune in on the Green Wave Sports Network if you cannot make it.
And the Delbarton cross country team won both legs of their opening meet against Chatham and Montville. Junior Ryan Leuenberger came in first for the Green Wave with a time of 16:47 and was 3rd overall. He was followed close behind by Will Van Etten, who had a time of 16:59 and was 4th overall, both in the 5K. The cross-country team will now have a short break in their competition, and then they will pick back up on September 30th, where they will face a dual meet against Mendham and Morristown.
Yeah, and just talking a little bit about the sub-varsity schedule, over the weekend the freshman football team got a win against St. Peter's 21-6. They're 1-2 and they play Seton Hall this weekend. JV football also beat St. Peter's 14-12, so unfortunately only varsity lost to St. Peter's. And then JV soccer, they're 5-1. They're coming off a big 2-0 win versus Don Bosco, and they beat Mount Olive 4-1. They face Chaminade and Mendham next. And then the freshman soccer team, they also beat Don Bosco 2-0, and then they beat Mount Olive 3-2, and they face the same schedule as the junior varsities.
For some lacrosse commitment news, class of 2027, Brandon Summer has announced his commitment to Air Force, so huge congratulations to him. And another strong lacrosse recruit coming out of the class of 2027. That's shaping up to be a great season ahead of them for the lacrosse team.
Definitely more to stay tuned on in the lacrosse season. So now we're going to talk a little bit about pro football over the weekend. So you saw Carson Wentz and the Vikings, they cruised through the Bengals 48-10. Wow, what a dominant win for them. The Seahawks, they dominated the Saints with 38 first half points. They have an upcoming Thursday night football game against the Cardinals, which is actually today. That's going to be a big one as a Seahawks fan myself. And then a couple of blocked field goals. 2 that saved the Eagles as they just beat the Rams. The Panthers, they crushed the Falcons. And the Jets also almost made a comeback on a blocked field goal versus the Buccaneers. And unfortunately, a blocked field goal was what lost your Packers the game. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, just a collapse in the second half there for the Packers, as they're going to fall just 3 points shy of the Browns. They're going to fall to 2-1. And, you know, they got a long season ahead of them, and they got to pick up some wins. And as for the Giants, who have yet to pick up their first win, they have announced their move to Jackson Dart over Russell Wilson as a starting QB. You know, you look at that schedule, it's a very tough schedule there for the Giants, and they've lost 3 straight now, the recent one to the Chiefs, who picked up their first win. And now it becomes the point of what can we do to flip the script?
Yeah, definitely. And some key injuries happening this past week to some running backs and receivers. One being James Conner, who's out for the season with an ankle injury. So Trey Benson's going to have to step up for that team. Najee Harris tore his Achilles. Unfortunate, as him and Hampton were really creating a 1-2 punch. And Tyron Tracy with a shoulder injury similar to Xavier Worthy's. And then CeeDee Lamb looks like he's going to be out about 4 to 6 weeks with an injury as well.
Yep, and now as for college football, we had a loaded schedule this weekend. Indiana dismantled Illinois 63-10 in a statement top 25 win. It propels Indiana to be ranked 11th in the most recent AP poll, as Illinois is going to fall down to 23. Oklahoma took care of business against Auburn 24-17 with a quality ranked win, and Miami coast passed Florida 26-7. That's the third straight loss for Florida, as they're now 1-3 on the season.
Yeah, not looking good. Had high hopes for DJ Lagway. I think everyone did. And unfortunately, they're just struggling. We'll see if they can pick it back up.
As for next week, we're going to have a great slate with 3 top 20 matchups. First is going to be 4th-ranked LSU versus 13th-ranked Ole Miss. And then in the late 7:30 slot, there's going to be 17th-ranked Alabama versus 5th-ranked Georgia. And then the statement match of the week is going to be 6th-ranked Oregon, making the hike to Happy Valley to face 3rd-ranked Penn State. That's going to be an awesome game in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that one. 2 great teams looking to pick up a key win. And something new to the Across the Wave is each person picking one fantasy player for the week that they would think will do good and be a good pickup. And for my doing good for the rest of the season, I think Trey Benson is going to be a good pickup after James Conner unfortunately fell to a season-ending injury. They don't really have any options behind him. So I say, if Trey Benson's a free agent or if you're in need in running back, go get him. And then someone who could be a good pickup, I think Trey Tucker, who's really emerged as the receiver 1 and 2 for the Raiders, picked up 4 touchdowns already on the season. So he's looking hot. What about you, Dooley?
Yeah, I went for Alik Ayomanor. He's a very interesting rookie, and he's not on a lot of fantasy leagues. He's available in around 50% of leagues. And he had a solid role in the Tennessee offense over the past 3 weeks. He's had at least 6 targets in all 3 of their games so far. And especially in the past 2 games, he's put up really solid numbers at around 10 fantasy points in both of those games. I think going forward, he could be a very good safety guy, bench guy for your team if you need a wide receiver.
Yeah, definitely a great pickup. And who do you have winning tonight's game? Seahawks, Cardinals, both 2-1. And NFC West is looking strong.
You know, Cardinals, they had a little shakeup after their injury. They're going to have to figure out new ways to go about it. I think they're going to get the job done. I think they're going to take down their Seahawks.
All right, yeah, that'll be a great game in Arizona. But that will do it for episode 3 of Across the Wave. We had a great, amazing time preparing this slate. We'll be back next week with another slate and more news on the past games that happened this upcoming week. For Lorenzo, Scola, and Ryan Dooley.
Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week.